And here we are again. I gotta say, the Baltimore Ravens are quite the fascinating team. They have all the talent in the world to be successful and win a championship. But for some reason, they just can't seem to put it together. And a lot of their issues are self-related issues. They're personal issues that can be fixed. These are self-inflicted wounds that the Ravens put on themselves. And it should be fixable, but for some reason, they're never fixed. And today was another perfect example of that. The game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns went just about as what you would expect from a Ravens team that finds ways to hurt themselves in one of the weirdest ways possible. This iteration of the Ravens have been quite the interesting one because they seem to be able to dominate any team in the National Football League. But at the same time, they're such an untrustworthy unit that you fear for them when it comes to trying to hold on to a lead. You never know what you're going to get from them. I want you guys to take a look at the screen. Take a look at what you're seeing right now. This was an image that was showcased during the London game back in week 6 when we went up against the Titans. The Ravens have suffered 5 losses with a double-digit lead since the start of 2022. That's tied for the most in the NFL. They have suffered 8 losses when they've had a 7-plus point lead in the fourth quarter. That is the most since 2021. Last but not least, they have suffered 10 losses when leading, entering the fourth quarter since 2022. That is also the most in the NFL. After today's game, you might as well add a tally to each one of those aspects. The Ravens had a double-digit lead in this game. The Ravens were up heading into the fourth quarter. In fact, they had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. They were up 31-17. And once again, the Ravens find a way to collapse. Interesting enough, in our building, they find a way to collapse and lose a game they have no reason losing. And it's very interesting how this continues to happen to the Ravens. Doesn't matter who they've switched out. Doesn't matter what players they've added, what schemes they've changed. The Ravens just continue to find a way to choke games that they have no reason choking. A game like this against a divisional rival, knowing what's at stake, for this team to go out there and choke that game away because of self-inflicted wounds, man, it's frustrating. But at the end of the day, is it really much of a surprise? No. That image I showed you is probably the biggest factor as to why many people have called for John Harbaugh's job. Because this is happening on his watch. This is happening with him being the primary decision maker. This is happening in fourth quarters where you need your head coach to make the right decisions. It's happening under his watch. It's been happening consistently with the coaching staff over the last several years. It has been a problem that is yet to be fixed, and it continues to be added to. Another tally added to that list after today's loss. It's kind of frustrating. Now, me personally, am I surprised? No. See, when you guys always, come into my comment sections and engage in the live streams and you keep asking me after a great win, do I see this Ravens as a Super Bowl contending team? Do I see them as the best team and all sorts of stuff? I sit back and tell you, right now I'm not fully sure. I want to see them be consistent, and I want to see them be able to close games in key situations. Some will sit back and say I'm being too harsh with the team. They're winning. They're over 500. They dominated the Lions and the Seahawks. Shouldn't you give them a little bit of leniency? Well, you get moments like this as to where I point to as to why I don't give leniency to this team. Because I've seen this far too many times. The Ravens have the talent to compete for a championship. They have the capability to go on a run and win a Super Bowl. Yet time and time again, they continue to find a way to choke away games they have no reason to choke. And a lot of these games they're choking is in their building. It's very interesting how this continues to happen. And a big part of that has to deal with John Harbaugh. And most importantly, it has to deal with his decision making. A lot of the times the Ravens end up losing this lead because they want to do things their way instead of zoning in on what works. A perfect example of that is today's game. Keaton Mitchell on the opening drive took it the distance for a 39-yard touchdown. He finished the game with 3 carries. Keaton Mitchell seemed like he was ready to have a huge running day, and we only gave him 3 carries. Now, why was that? Well, because John Harbaugh likes doing things his way, and the Ravens like doing things their way. Instead of feeding the hot hand that Keaton Mitchell was clearly showcasing himself to be, what do they choose to do? They choose to continue to feed Gus Edwards, and they get Justice Hill involved in the running game. You got Keaton Mitchell, who seems like he's eating early on and could continue to eat if you feed him the ball. And instead, we keep force-feeding Gus Edwards the ball in the run game, and we're trying to run design run plays with Lamar Jackson, and we get Justice Hill involved. The Ravens love utilizing all their backs. Why? It's because it's the Ravens' way. It's what Harbaugh wants. They're not looking to give it to one player and just feed the hot hand. They want to get everybody involved. They asked him about this in the press conference. He said that's kind of just how the game went. Really, you just didn't think to try to get the ball to a guy that was actually showcasing that he was able to somewhat run on this defense? You didn't feel the need to do that? Are you sure that was the right thing? Time and time again, this man is coming up to the podium and they're asking him, why didn't he do this? Or why didn't he do that? How comes this guy didn't get that look? Why didn't you look to do this? And it just seems time and time again, they're just caught with their pants down. Against the Colts, why did you have Zay Flowers out there catching that punt instead of Devin Duvernay, who's your punt returner? It's continued to happen over and over and over and over with the Ravens. And it doesn't seem like it's an issue that's going to go away. It's tough. It's really tough. If you're a Ravens fan, it's very tough to see this happen. Because you understand what this team's capable of. But it just seems that when the pressure's high and the moment is big, the Ravens crumble. It's starting to become a trend. It's becoming a consistent thing. And this is not even something that started now. This is something that's been happening throughout the John Harbaugh era. I mean, one of the biggest examples that I point out to, the 2015 divisional round. Or, 2014-2015 divisional round, you know what I mean. That 2014 season, January 2015, you know what I mean. Either way, that divisional round matchup with the New England Patriots. We had 2 14-point leads in that game. You were up 14-0 in New England, and you were up 28-14 in New England. Baltimore blew both 14-point games and lost. There's been plenty of times where the game's been on the line throughout the years, and you've needed to make a stop. 2016, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, you need your defense to come up clutch and make a stop. If the Steelers score a touchdown here, they win the division. What happens? Antonio Brown is being covered by 3 defenders. He extends his arm. Touchdown. And the funny thing about it is, leading up to that drive, there was a guy that was getting cooked consistently. I believe it was Sharice Wright that was consistently getting cooked. They never took Sharice Wright off of Antonio Brown. And it was a situation where Ben continued to see that matchup and knew they were going to eat. So he just kept throwing to Antonio and anybody Sharice Wright was covering. And it led them down to the goal line where they scored a touchdown. 2017, week 17. You got to beat the Bengals to get into the playoffs. Just need a stop from your defense. They give up a touchdown on 4th and 12. This has been a consistent thing with John Harbaugh coach teams. This has not started in the Lamar Jackson era, but now he is a part of it. And he has taken part of a lot of these choking performances by the Ravens, a lot of these collapses by the Ravens. We saw it all throughout 2022. We saw that in moments of the 2021 season. We saw it in the divisional round against the Titans. We have seen this far too many times. At what point does this get addressed? Now, fans are going to be fans, and I understand wanting to defend the team. A lot of people are just going to sit back and say, hey, we're 7-3, we're looking great, we dominate the Lions and the Seahawks. It's just a bad game, we made mistakes, we're going to fix it and move on. You're free to make that assessment. But the Ravens have shown over the years that when it comes to situations like this, they crumble. And this right here, this season, seems to be a different element when it comes to the Ravens. The Ravens right now, you can make an argument, they're front runners. When they're dominating the game and have all these points and they're up by much, and it's a situation where they're most likely not going to choke that lead away, everything's perfect. But once that pressure starts to hit, when that pressure starts to mount, and you need to make defensive stops, or you need to make a play on offense and put points on the board, for some reason the Ravens can't do it. We saw last year against the Dolphins, there were moments we needed stops and moments where we could have used points. Offense disappeared, defense couldn't make a stop. Saw that today. Offense disappeared, defense couldn't make a stop. I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know. And for anyone that wants to try to use the 7 points they got that was gifted to them because freaking James Prochet fumbled the ball at the 10-yard line, that's not really a case of showing the offense going down the field and putting up points. That's them, utilizing that opportunity to put points up. And even then, it took multiple penalties that was caused by the Browns defense to even give Baltimore a chance to be put in that position. So Baltimore really couldn't do anything there. It was really the Browns that were hurting themselves more than the Ravens being effective in those situations. But yeah, when the going gets tough, this team seems to crumble. And it's been a consistent thing under John Harbaugh. This isn't a video to call for Harbaugh's job. He's not going anywhere. It's clear as day. But it's getting real tiring of watching the same thing happen to the Ravens over and over again. Defense that's supposed to be great can't seem to make stops in key situations. Offense that's led by an MVP quarterback goes ghost and can't seem to do anything effectively. Can't seem to move the ball downfield. Can't seem to put points on the board. They just go ghost. And then you got a coaching staff that doesn't seem to know what they're doing in the fourth quarter. And you got John Harbaugh just looking lost out there. Didn't want to say this, but at times in the fourth quarter, John Harbaugh is reminding me of Ron Rivera because Harbaugh just looks lost out there. I don't know what he's doing at the time. It just seems like he doesn't know what's going on out there. How many fourth quarters are you going to continue to blow before this is addressed? People can sit back and completely ignore this and say, hey man, we did this to the Lions, we did this to the Seahawks, we closed the game out against Cincinnati, we'll be fine, it's one bad game. You're free to make that assessment. You're free to do so. But that picture I showed you, that image does not lie. That has been the Ravens over the last several years. When the going gets tough, when things aren't working out your way, when everything's collapsing, turnovers are happening, when you've got to re-engage and win the game, Baltimore is showcasing that they're not able to do that. They're showcasing they're not able to do that. Pittsburgh, nothing was going well. Guys couldn't catch the pass. You have an opportunity because somehow the ball gets fumbled and you're at the goal line. What happens? Lamar throws a pick. Defense ends up getting the ball, and a game-winning touchdown to George Pickens happens. Against the Colts, turnovers are happening. Can't move the ball at all. Can't move the ball at all offensively. Defense is actually making stops. You have a chance to ice the game. For some reason, Zay Flowers is returning the punt. Making those mental mistakes for no reason. You end up losing that game because the offense can't move the ball. And don't bring up, penalties. If you have to rely on penalties to win the game, you're already messing up. And it's already showing you can't be trusted if that's what you have to rely on. You have to rely on the refs to help you win. You shouldn't be put in that position in the first place. And now here today, multiple turnovers are happening. You need to go make a play. You need to put points on the board. You need to make stops. Can't do it. Can't do it. This has been a consistent thing for years. Doesn't matter what changes they've made at the coaching staff, offense coordinator, defense coordinator. Don't matter. Don't matter what talent they've added here. Under the same head coach, the same mistakes continue to happen. You guys are free to make whatever assessments you want to make. Me personally, I'm not mad at the loss against Cleveland. I'm already moved on. We got Cincinnati in 4 days. That's where my focus is. I'm also not surprised by the Ravens choking this league. They've been doing it for years now. It's basically normal for me. So I'm not mad. The Ravens are also playing up to the expectations I put for them in the season. So nothing has changed me. I'm waiting to see the Ravens surprise me. But nothing has really surprised me. They've been doing exactly what I expected them to do. So nothing has really changed so far. They're well within the expectations I set for them this season. And I wouldn't be surprised if they end up following that to the T. We'll have to see. But before I go, I want to leave you guys with this question. And I want the Ravens flock to answer this. And be honest. No biasness because this is your squad or you like this guy or that guy. Just be honest. How much faith, belief, and trust do you have in Harbaugh being able to get it done and make the right decisions in key games in the playoffs? How much faith do you have in Harbaugh being able to do what he needs to do, handling business as a head coach in fourth quarters in the playoffs? How much faith do you have in him in doing that? How much faith do you have in this defense being able to make key stops in the fourth quarter? Better yet, scratch that. How much faith do you have in this defense in being able to go out there and making a stop in a must-stop situation where game's on the line, you need to make a stop to win the game in the playoffs? How much faith do you have in this defense to do so? Last but not least, how much faith do you have in Lamar Jackson and that offense being able to score points in a must-score situation? Down by 7, season on the line in the playoffs, you put the ball in Lamar's in the offense hands. How much faith do you have on them going down the field in the playoffs after everything's collapsed and you need to get a score on this drive? How much faith do you have in Lamar in the offense and being able to pull that off in the playoffs? Overall, how much faith do you have in this team when it comes to the playoffs? If they are in a situation where nothing's going their way, everything's collapsed, turnovers are happening, and they got to find a way to close this game out. How much faith do you have in this team being able to do that in the playoffs? Based off of the history I've showcased to you, based off of the image that I've showcased to you about how this team has blown the most losses when they've had a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter, when they've entered the fourth quarter with a lead, when they've had a double-digit lead. How much faith, trust, and belief do you have in this team being able to get it done consistently in the playoffs? Because honestly, right now, I don't really have a lot of faith. I don't have a lot of belief. I don't have a lot of trust. I have a lot of hope, because all you can do as a fan is hope. The most basic thing a fan can ever do is hope when it comes to their team. I hope they can get it done. I hope they can go the distance. I hope they can get to Super Bowl. I hope they can win a championship. We have hope. But to say you have faith, belief, and trust in them being able to get it done when they have showcased over the last 3 years, when they're in these situations, they can't close out games and they're choking these leads away and losing these games, how can you trust them? How can you believe in them? Most importantly, how can you trust and believe in your head coach to lead these guys to victory when he has been a no-show and consistently gets out-coached and consistently fails to make the right decision and just looks lost in the fourth quarter of these games? How much faith can you have in a guy like that? I'm just saying. Nothing's going to change with the Ravens. Harbaugh and the Ravens are going to continue to do whatever they want to do. Nothing's going to change. This game isn't going to have any impact on any level of change with the Ravens. They're going to keep on trucking, say it's a bad loss, and move on. We'll see what happens. I had already predicted the Ravens to win a playoff game this year and lose in the divisional round. I feel like we could be heading there. So, we'll see if they surprise me at the end of the day. But me personally, everything's going well within my expectations, and nothing seems to change. It seems like it could be another year of playoff failure. I've already said it. Until major change happens, I wouldn't fully trust this team. So, of course, you guys also, asked me about whether or not I believe this team is a Super Bowl contending team. I'm not going to answer that again yet. I'm going to wait until the bye week because I said after the Chargers game I would answer that. But if I was to give you a small insight about this team and as to whether or not they're a Super Bowl contending team, I'll say this. They're a Super Bowl contending roster, but I wouldn't put money on them winning the championship because Cincinnati and especially Kansas City has showcased that they can perform under pressure. And we have collapsed under pressure over the last couple of years. So feel free to assess it however you want to assess it. I don't know what else to tell you. Anyway, guys, it was a tough loss today. Tough loss against a divisional rival. Really, really wish you didn't blow this one knowing you got Cincinnati. And what makes it worse is Cincinnati lost to the Texans. So you really could have extended yourself even more. But now Cleveland is gnawing at the first place AFC North title right here, and Pittsburgh is still right there because they beat the Packers as expected. Now you got a short turnaround because Cincinnati is coming to Baltimore in 4 days. And if you're not ready and you lose that game too, the AFC North becomes a complete gauntlet where everybody's catching up. Because at that point, Cincinnati will be at 6-4, you'll be 7-4, and now Pittsburgh can regain first place in the AFC North with a win on Sunday against, I believe, the Cleveland Browns. So It's very interesting to see how things are turning up in the AFC North. Things are getting very, hectic and physical here. We'll see how things go. But for the Ravens, can't really dwell over this loss. Got to move on, and you got to get ready for Thursday Night Football at the bank against Cincinnati. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I got to say. I'm pretty much done here. We'll see what happens with the Ravens on Thursday. And with that being said, that is all I've got, and I'm out of here. Peace.